Do you really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Hey, motherfucker, what you like to do?
Oh, I don't know. Play chess. Screw.
Well, let's play chess.
They give off to Jonathan Taylor. Jump cutting his way close to the goal line. He's in there. Touchdown. I-N-D-Y. Jonathan Taylor.
Wheeler finds Quan from the logo.
Here's Halliburton into the front court. Mishandled it, but gets a shot. Hits it. Hits it.
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
This week, it is more like the ride without JMV, which kind of tells you it is potentially a somewhat slow sports week. Or it is a chance to kind of catch up, catch your breath, recharge before Colts camp begins, and then everything gradually builds to the start of the football season. Now, I'm actually going to start by complimenting John on just how ridiculously skinny he has become. By the way, my name is Greg Rakestraw, and I may now look more like the guy that we show you in the graphic for those of you watching on YouTube and on Twitter when we're like going to break and there's this old school picture of JMV. Like, JMV never struck me as fat before, but he is so skinny now. When I see pictures of John that were taken like 2 years ago, I go, damn, that dude's lost a lot of weight. So perhaps we left that picture up today, even though John's not going to be here today, nor tomorrow or Thursday, because your current host kind of looks more like that guy in the picture than the guy in John who is, now suns out, guns out all the time when given the opportunity. James Adams on the other side, and I will interact with him as well as you, 317-239-1070. At Greg Rakestraw on Twitter. I think you can actually even email the show, too. I think the handle Greg at 1070thefan.com still works. Bat phone, for those of you that have access to it, that would work as well. But I'll tell this to James. James, I'm pretty sure that we can do whatever we want to around here this week. The reason being is that like all adult authority figures, which at one time I was at this radio station, they're all gone for the week. Jeff Rickard is out. Todd Meyer is gone. The brains of the operation, Scott Johnston, gone. They'll be back. They're not been jettisoned from the building. They're all on vacation. Again, you get the drift of this for the football season. So yeah, I just, if I get bored, I may get some of your favorite. We may just go to a song for like 5 or 6 minutes.
Okay.
We may be a mix of sports talk and rock between 6 o'clock. So you want to get some Slayer and some Pantera ready to go.
Oh, absolutely.
If I said you could play your favorite music on the show, James, what would it be?
Favorite band or just favorite genre?
Yeah,
favorite band?
Favorite band, genre, whatever. I said, all right, I'm giving you 3 minutes to play a song on this program. What would it be?
It would probably be something from Gojira, if you've ever heard of Gojira.
I have not. No,
okay.
I thought that was a type of cheese.
Well, it's a French death metal band.
Okay.
That have named themselves after Godzilla.
I kind of thought that James would go off the beaten path. I did not think that he would go French death metal on the show.
They're fantastic.
I'll take your word for it. I think I know more about Al Jazeera than I know Gojira. But thank you for bringing that up and letting me go haywire immediately off the top of the show. Allow me to also interact with you in this way. I'm trying to kind of recalibrate the timeline of when all of this happened on Friday. I know that John had Chad Buchanan on to start the 5 o'clock hour of the show. When did Miles, because I was literally on before John, I was on noon to 3 on Friday afternoon. Miles had not had his introductory press conference in Milwaukee yet. What time did Miles have that press conference on Friday?
It was sometime around 4:30.
Okay.
It was before Chad came on the show, because we actually played some audio coming into Chad.
I'm sure that was quite interesting. My apologies for not being dialed into that. So in other words, John, who obviously, whether this is correct or incorrect, basically, trying to make sure I phrase this properly because I had zero problem with how John handled it. John believed in Miles Turner and was a champion of Miles Turner. He was not a mouthpiece. He was not a puppet. He was a guy that was pro-Miles and was always pro-Miles and was not shy to be pro-Miles about it.
Mm-hmm.
So my guess is John's reaction was rather interesting on Friday afternoon, correct?
He had a lot of feelings, and he he handled it well, but it pricked. I'm trying to think of the right word right here. It maybe raised the blood pressure.
It struck a nerve.
Exactly, that's the one.
Would be the best way to phrase that. Okay, good. So this is not Miles has I wouldn't say reaction, but there was a reaction to Miles's press conference, and then unfortunately, John is not here to defend himself. So in other words, we've about worked our way through the entirety of the news cycle on Miles Turner. The Indiana Pacers, obviously, the ultimate gift that kept on giving to keep Indianapolis Sports Talk Radio interesting throughout the month of June. And we thought that even with the injury to Tyrese Halliburton, this would largely be team run it back. Obviously, Miles Turner had other thoughts and ideas. And so, when you have the Friday news dump, so to speak, by the time it gets to Monday, you feel like you're rehashing something that was 72 hours ago. And I guess I kind of am. I think we have finally hit the end of the Miles Turner news cycle as of today. Of all the things that Miles had to say, and James, when he wasn't listening to French death metal get fired up for the show, was great about going, hey, do you mind cutting up the press conference audio so we can kind of play it, reference it, interact with it, etc. There is obviously one quote above all that has been spread like wildfire on social media this week that pretty much napalmed the bridge between Miles Turner and the Indiana Pacers, and here is that soundbite.
But for me, ultimately it was about just staying competitive. 2 years ago, got to Eastern Conference Finals. Obviously, last year we got to the finals. But, being there, being part of it, winning basketball has just changed my entire perspective on this league. And I saw a chance to remain competitive here. And, John and even Doc has assured me that, winning is the top priority here. And we just align with our visions.
There are so many things and so many different directions that you can say. And frankly, we as sports fans are far more understanding of the business side of things than we used to be. Like, for example, I have almost tried to dial back, like talking about like ratings for sports and things of that nature, just because there's so many outlets for everything that I now kind of go, all right, if you want to talk about it, great. If it's interesting to you and I'll talk about it, fine. But I'm done kind of playing armchair GM/programmer as to trying to relate and do the things of, all right, people want to talk about these two topics and just beat them into the ground. It is the joy of not doing this full time. I'm kind of given carte blanche, especially when like everybody in programming is out of the country or not in the building for the next 7 days. I can talk about things I'm passionate about, things I'm knowledgeable about, and things I want to talk about. But I will discuss that. But let me discuss this in terms of Miles. Like if Miles had simply said, the Milwaukee Bucks had made me an offer I could not refuse, I think everybody here in Indianapolis would have said, we respect that, we get that, God bless you. And people in Indianapolis are not dumb. They understand this team is going to take a step back this year. But if you honestly believe in your heart of hearts that going to Milwaukee now, that you're a better team now, maybe for this year, but Tyrese Halliburton isn't dead. He's coming back. He'll be back. Everybody else is largely under contract. Yeah, there's a question about Benedict Mathurin after this year. Sure, yeah, you got to make sure everybody kind of gets theirs and fits things in. But seriously? That's the reason that you state? And again, I did not listen to the entire press conference. We'll play sound bites throughout the course of it. And again, in one sense, I want to bring it up just because it kind of, it's still the most pressing Pacers/Colts topic we can talk about on the show. But it was 3 days ago. But it's the first time that this program in full can discuss it. But that's the reason why you went? Like, you can be honest. You can say, hey, listen, I didn't like the numbers I was getting back from Kevin Pritchard, from Chad Buchanan, from the Pacers. Milwaukee offers me this, and I took it because it's the last big contract I'm going to get. By the time this contract is over, I'm 14 years in the NBA. I'm financially set. Everybody would have said, good on you. But now you can take the social media post that you made on Thursday and you can print it and you can wipe your rear end with it. That sounds like something John would kind of say. That sounds like I channeled my inner Southern Indiana to be like John in that moment. I swear to you, I learned the phrase, blank you and the horse you rode in on during a varsity basketball game between Lanesville and Henryville when I was in high school. Very Southern Indiana thing to say right there. Again, it's okay to go to a different place. And I thought that Kevin Pritchard was very professional in how he handled it in terms of his media availability during the week last week. But if you're saying, I think I get to be more competitive in Milwaukee, dude, it's you and Giannis and Kuzma, and who else is on that team? Who else you got? It's not like you get to keep Damian Lillard. You get to keep paying him. If you don't keep Damian Lillard, you done got rid of Chris Middleton to bring in Kyle Kuzma. You had to jettison Pat Connaughton to make it work. And again, I don't fault the Milwaukee Bucks for making a move. Everything that Milwaukee is trying to do is keep Giannis in Milwaukee. Show that you care. You know, this is a smaller scale version of the Cavs trying to do every move they could, even if they ended up being wrong moves, doing the moves they could to try to keep LeBron in Cleveland, like, you know, in both occasions. That's what Milwaukee's trying to do. And who was like the only major free agent play you could make in the NBA this year? It was doing that move to eat that much of a cap space in dollars to pay Damian Lillard to have just enough money to bring in Miles Turner. But what you did is you spent 10 years, and again, he was a polarizing lightning rod type of figure here. And I said this on Friday before I knew what Miles was going to say, that it was the ultimate 50-50 split in terms of, hey, Miles, thank you. Hey, Miles, go pound sand. Go play with your Legos, whatever the case may be. But then when you say, hey, I'm in other words, I think this team is going to be garbage because Tyrese isn't playing and because I'm not on it, dude. And so I cannot wait for the NBA schedule to be released. It normally happens at some point in time in the month of August. About a month or so from now is when the Pacers schedule comes out. And there should be one date that everybody is looking for amongst any of the rest of them. When do the Bucks play here for the first time? And part of me is very curious too. If you're the Indiana Pacers, how do you handle it? Not just, and you can frankly take that comment and go in 39 different directions with it. The way that I meant it would be, if you're there's two different ways that immediately came to my mind. The synapse is firing in my brain. One, if you're the players on the team, competitive. Okay, all right, competitive. Okay, I got you. Let's show you competitive. But number two, like the sappy video board pregame tribute. Thank you for 10 great years. Again, this is a guy that has played, what, the 6th or 7th most games in the history of the franchise? And it goes away. And maybe your opinion didn't change based on that quote, but that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Again, trying to use the parlance of the show. If I could channel my inner JMV right now, maybe because I'm like literally twice his size these days, my outer JMV as well. If Johnny Gill was about rubbing you the right way, Miles Turner apparently is about rubbing you the wrong way. Thank you. I'll be here until 6 o'clock. 317-239-1070 is telephone number, at Greg Rakestraw on Twitter. Email the program to Greg at 1070thefan.com. Again, if you know the bat phone, you can go that way. I see the Twitter is starting to fill up I don't have the wherewithal to like read the tweets and then like still have a running conversation with you. So like give me a break or two to get there, and we'll figure that out. Here is the guest list on the show today. We've got one in each hour of the show, and the rest of the time it can be you and me talking about Miles Turner, Legos, whatever the case may be. I will kind of recap what I thought was of importance in terms of the weekend that was in local sports, even if it was not a slow weekend, but a slower weekend for the most part than we will be experiencing going forward. Coming up in the next segment of the show, John Nolan, who is the radio voice, of course, of the Indiana Fever. Fever obviously have been very much up and down without Caitlin Clark, with Caitlin Clark, etc. There was some concern going to the weekend, not as much concern given how they played against both Atlanta and Dallas on Friday and Sunday. Fever have one more game before the WNBA world descends upon Indianapolis. They play tomorrow night. You can hear the game, of course, on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. We'll talk with John coming up in the next segment of the show. I mentioned this with Jake Query. The Indianapolis Indians, by the way, are having a really good season. And frankly, you go to the Indians game for the experience. So it's not like a lot of folks really kind of track exactly what their record is. But since the day job for me is working for the company that produces the Indianapolis Indians home games, and we were kind of going back and forth and realized I think the Indians are 24 games over 500 at home this year. In other words, when you go to Victory Field, they pretty much guarantee you have a good time for the bang for your buck. It's why you keep going back by the hundreds of thousands every year and have done that now for the 30th season, counting the COVID year, so I guess 29th year. Or they didn't have to get to play in 2020 since they moved to Victory Field in 1996. The anniversary of that date, by the way, was Friday. That was the 29th birthday of Victory Field. Well, a guy that has been there since day one, not just at Victory Field, but a guy that's been there for 50-plus years, so long that the broadcast booths have been named after him at the Vic. That would be Howard Kellman, who's been a great friend of mine for those 30 years. Howard called his 7,000th game for the Indianapolis. 7K for HK. That was on Friday night as well. And so Howard will join us during the 4 o'clock hour of the show. It is their All-Star break. They return to action on Friday, as do the Major League Baseball guys. I will try to give MLB a bit more of a cursory glance at the All-Star break. All-Star game is tomorrow night. Home Run Derby is tonight. I realize I am going to have a talk show tomorrow. If you're planning on tuning in for in-depth analysis of the Home Run Derby, probably should go elsewhere. Not exactly huge on my radar right now. But we will talk a little Major League Baseball at some point in time. And if I don't have a guest about it to talk about it today, we'll do that tomorrow. Stephen Holder will be joining us as well. And while this is the last chance to catch your breath, if you're in and around the Colts, those days are waning. Basically, rookies report on Monday. Veterans show up on Tuesday. Fans show up on Wednesday because there's practice next week. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Sunday off, then back at it again the following week. Monday, Tuesday, then a Thursday night practice on July 31st. If you want to go see the Indianapolis Colts at Grand Park next week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at 10 a.m. I think the Saturday practice is it's a 4 o'clock practice, if I remember that one properly, because I got to figure out a way to do that and cover the Brickyard 400 and do an Indy 11 game that night and figure out a way to do all 3 of those things. But such is life that I am dealing with. 317-490-26 or 317. I almost get my cell phone there. 317-239-1070 is the telephone number. From BT New, I took it that Miles meant to be more competitive now. Does anyone know how Halliburton is coming back like it was before the injury? He didn't say the Pacers were garbage. He's supposed to say he came to Milwaukee not to win. I get that. But again, that strikes a nerve. And I didn't expect him to say I came to Milwaukee to cash in and do nothing. No, he's coming to be a great player and make sure the Bucks maintain where they are. But if you basically say, I'm coming here to be more competitive, you just trash the other guys that you were teammates with for the last several years. Miles was a very important piece, was a key piece to the operation. But so too are 7, 8, 9 other players that will be playing this year, Brian. So that's why that comment stuck in my craw the way that it did. And again, I while not having the platform and the amount of airtime dedicated to talking about Miles that John did, etc., my line of thought on Miles was pretty much in line with John, where I'm like, hey, yeah, I know he's not a great rebounder. I get that. But he's a hell of a three-point shooter, and he's a hell of a shot blocker, and he fits around the other pieces. So despite some of his flaws, I still would have hoped he would have re-signed here. And again, if the Bucks, and it certainly sounds like they were, by all reports, indications, etc., that it was longer term and more money that Milwaukee was offering, I don't blame him for going to Milwaukee. But when he says, I want to go here to be more competitive than I would have been in Indiana, dude, that's kind of on you. You could have stayed here and ensured this team stayed competitive. And I'm not saying that to say that this team is going to be not competitive without Miles Turner. I still think this is going to be a playoff team. But again, what my expectation is that this is going to be a one-year dip. And to be honest, I think it's a bigger dip in terms of the postseason than it is the regular season. You know, we all suffer from short-term memory, and what's more important, playoffs or regular season? Well, the answer is obviously the playoffs. But the Pacers were a 50-win team, which is good. 50-win teams typically aren't NBA Finals teams, aren't teams that are one game away from winning an NBA championship good. That was how special this run was, and that's what I still think can happen here. Maybe I'm naive. Maybe I'm stupid. Wouldn't be the first time, won't be the last time. And Brian, I know you're not saying that because you and I have been friends long enough for a long enough period of time where we can question each other but not insult each other's intelligence. So I'm not taking in that direction as well. But if, as a Pacers player, you're damn straight I'm insulted when Miles said what he said. And so the extension of that, as a Pacers fan, if you're insulted by what he said, good. I think you should be. Well, I kind of am too. We'll get back to that over the Twitter machine, over the phone lines, etc. 317-239-1070 at Greg Rakestraw. We will take a break. We'll talk about the team that is, well, busier now inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse. And all of downtown Indianapolis, it seems, is going to be busy with WNBA All-Star Weekend. First, they've got one more regular season game to play. That's tomorrow night, a game you can hear on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. The man that'll have the call in, John Nolan, joins us next.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
We had one new sounder. It completely throws off the chi of the entire board. James was screaming things in French death metal at the automation system a moment ago. What's love got to do with it, Tina Turner? I do not know, but thank you so much for being a part. See, again, am I the takeover? No, but can I reference random Tina Turner songs from 41 years ago? Absolutely, I can. 317-239-1070, not my cell phone number. 317-239-1070 is what you can call to be a part of the program. John Nolan, voice of the Fever, will join us, but he has asked for a little more time to get ready for his radio appearance, which is good news for Julia. I can get to her telephone call right now. Hello, Julia. How are you?
Fine. How are you today?
I'm good. How can I help you?
Well, I wanted to first say how much I agree with you so much on everything you've said so far about Turner. And it's too bad, but that's the way it is.
Yep.
The number two thing I wanted to call you about is how my feelings about last night's Fever game I got to go to, and it was so fantastic to see the team work together so good. And CC coming back, her passes reminded me of some of the feelings I had when Peyton first came to town, and he made those fantastic passes. This is just the female version of a basketball player that has something special, just like he did.
Yeah, it's a great corollary. And Julia, thanks for the telephone call and thanks for the kind words. Hope you keep enjoying the rest of the show. And thanks for dialing us up. And I'll go back to something. We had Scott Agnes on the show, and I filled in for Jake when he was oasising on Friday. And I asked kind of a tongue-in-cheek question on purpose. And the question that I asked was, how important is it the Fever are winning right now? Basically what I'm saying, the reason I asked that question, here's the reason behind it. It is such an automatic sell to say go to an Indiana Fever game when Caitlin Clark is involved. It is a guaranteed sellout. I love the marketing slogan / smack talk from the team that says every game is a home game. In other words, we're going to see Fever fans on the road too, just like we see them at home. Because they are such a guaranteed sell right now, I don't know if wins and losses overly crazily affect the bottom line. Now, the reason you want to win, and I basically jumped in and said, there's a reason to keep score. Not to go all Herm Edwards on you, but you play to win the game. The reason that winning is important is that you have to make sure you don't get to a point, a la the conversation we just had last segment of the show, every waking moment. I couldn't tell you who the general manager of the Milwaukee Bucks is, but every waking moment he has to go, what are we doing to keep Giannis in Milwaukee? He brought them a championship in 2021. Their first since the early 70s. You have to keep him, in the Cream City, as they call it. You're not at that point yet for the Indiana Fever because Caitlin's on, year 2. And to be blunt, I think it's 4-year deals you have to sign when you get to the WNBA as a rookie. And the CBA is going to change because the money has obviously changed. And the money is going to change. Why? Because of what Caitlin Clark has meant to the entirety of the league. Winning is important because you want to keep your star player happy. Because she is playing to be one of the all-time greats in her league. But she has an opportunity that no one in that league has had in the 30-ish years the WNBA has been around. And Julia brings up a comparison that is great for us in Indianapolis, but frankly is great for the general sports population at large. So much has been made, and rightfully so, about the disrespect of Caitlin Clark by others in the WNBA. And I am not going to sit here and try to tell you that I am enough of a WNBA expert to accurately place where Caitlin Clark is on the rankings of best players in the WNBA. The fact that she is one of the 2 all-star captains as selected by the WNBA probably gives you an idea, but there are others that could do this better than I could. In other words, the same conversation, how do you rank LeBron James versus Kevin Durant versus Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, etc.? I'm not sure if I'm intelligent enough on the WNBA to give you, I think she's really the 4th best player in the league right now. No. But in terms of the bottom line and the business of the WNBA, she is number 1 by a mile. And so if you had said this 2 years ago, that someone would call in and go, hey, this player for the Fever reminds me of Peyton Manning. 2 years ago, someone would have laughed you off the air. And now I go, hey, Julia, that's a great phone call. Because that's the space that she is potentially operating in. We're not talking about comparing her to other greats in the WNBA. We're comparing her to the other top athletes across the American sports landscape. And if I had X-ray vision, I probably wouldn't be doing this show. But if I had X-ray vision, as the camera sees me staring blankly, like James even looking that direction out too. What's he staring at? As I'm looking over James's left shoulder, that happens to be facing southwest. As I'm on Monument Circle in the DriveHubler.com studios. And if I just kept looking like through like a couple of different skyscrapers and past the new hotel they are building on Pan Am Plaza, eventually I would see what appears to be, a 30-story Caitlin Clark on the side of the JW Marriott. That's the space that she is taking up. So our first phone caller of the day compares Caitlin Clark to Peyton Manning. And I go, you know what? The way that potentially she could be viewed here, that's an apt comparison. In terms of the greater sports landscape, that's not that far-fetched of a comparison these days either. That, again, should catch your attention. So now the question is, can the Fever go and back it up? What can they do? Fever play tomorrow night against Connecticut, who is no bueno. Fever have to go to New York and play on Wednesday night. They're pretty good, but the Indiana Fever do have a victory against them earlier this season. Then you have the All-Star break. So the Fever have been 11-10 on the season again. Caitlin's been out of the lineup. She's been in the lineup. Stephanie White has missed a couple of games as well. Even without Caitlin, there have been some really quality wins. Now that they have won back-to-back games, you go, hey, is this it? Well, Steph, you look at their last 10 games, which is pretty much half of their season so far, they're 5-5. The definition of up and down. But can they back it up now? Playing Connecticut, who happens to be the worst team in the league, that should not be a concern. You get the Liberty, who are tied for being the second best team in the league. All right, now maybe you really have something going here in terms of heading into the All-Star break. So, Julia, thanks for the telephone call. Appreciate it. We can keep talking about Miles Turner. We'll keep talking about the Indiana Fever. I know the latter will happen because I haven't checked my phone, but probably John Nolan is ready for our telephone call. When we come back from this short timeout, Greg Rakestraw in for JMV, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
JMV.
Awesome! Totally awesome! All right, Hamilton.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
John is off today, tomorrow, and Thursday. You get me today and tomorrow. I get out of town for a little R&R on Thursday as well and try to recharge the batteries as best I can before the Colts season kicks in next week. I am honored again to be on the Colts Radio Network for a gulp 14th season, and I get to be doing the preseason games on television, and I got to do the math quickly again, take out the COVID year for a 7th year that I have done the preseason Colts games as well. August 7th, our first at Baltimore for that, kicking things off, and we are 3 weeks away from that, which means we are 1 week away from training camp, which officially gets underway when Veterans Report next Tuesday. I'll handle the next couple of segments. You can keep those thoughts percolating. We'll chat about 4:30 or so at 317-239-1070. Always keep the conversation going on social media. Follow me at Greg Rakestraw. But for the first time, let's go to the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. John Nolan will be on these airwaves both Tuesday and Wednesday. He joins us, I believe, from the road right now. How are you, my friend?
Hey, Rake, I'm great. Yeah, Fever on the road today in Boston ahead of tomorrow night's game against Connecticut. It's one of those examples like you were talking about just a little while ago. Every game is a home game. Even on the road, you've got so many teams around the WNBA who have relocated their matchups against the Fever to bigger venues. So tomorrow night, there'll be a sellout crowd of more than 19,000 at TD Garden. Normally, some of the Celtics and the Bruins, and now special occasion really to host the Fever against Connecticut.
So let's point this out. Not only are teams relocating to bigger venues, teams are apparently relocating home games to different states. So the Connecticut Sun are having a home game not in the state of Connecticut tomorrow.
Correct. And how about this for being apropos? So Fever right now are in Boston, which is the state capital of Massachusetts. And so I just got to witness a special ceremony for Aaliyah Boston, who spent part of her childhood here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, where the governor had a special ceremony today to declare this Aaliyah Boston Day throughout Massachusetts. So, not only are the games being moved, and it's, not exclusively just to, celebrate Caitlin Clark, but in this case, the entire state of Massachusetts is having a day for a member of the Indiana Fever, very deservedly so, for Aaliyah Boston.
All right, plenty to celebrate from both Friday and Sunday. Those two games were very similar, and that's good for the Indiana Fever. Wins by 17 and 19, and they scored nearly 100 points in both games. What suddenly clicked for the Fever on both Friday and Sunday?
Yeah, so I think a big piece of it, not to oversimplify anything, but like the buzzword is consistency, and it's hard to really blame them for inconsistencies up to this point of the season or until the last couple of games, just due to the fact that they've missed Caitlin for almost half of the games. Touched on it earlier. Even head coach Stephanie White out for a couple of games. Sophie Cunningham as one of the key pieces off the bench. She was out for a while with an injury. Had the Dewana Bonner situation, so you had Ari McDonald coming in and out of the roster and on the starting lineup. So not to completely alibi hovering around 500 so far this year, but it does make sense, especially when there were just a lot of new players on this roster to begin with. So as far as finding consistency, part of it is just having this group of players play together until all of a sudden one thing that really jumps out from these last two games is the assist rate. They assisted on 77% of their made shots in that win against Atlanta on Friday, and then on 75% of their made field goals yesterday against Dallas. I think a lot of high-level basketball coaches would tell you if their team's above 50%, they're pleased. 60% sounds great. So to be north of 75% with that assist rate, that speaks to true team basketball. Yesterday was all about the balance with 5 double-figure scores. And, I think another thing that really stands out, too, particularly yesterday, would just be the consistent defensive intensity that they had. Caitlin, for example, matched her career high with 5 steals. After yesterday's game, she kind of acknowledged that if she puts her mind to it, she can be a plus defensive player. And that rubs off on her teammates, too, right? So I think namely just having this group together, being healthy, getting into a flow, is the biggest thing. And then just like the heart and hustle on defense too tends to lead to the transition offense, the Peyton Manning kind of plays. And that's when this team is fun and at its best.
Listen, coming into this, you knew so much of the focus, and not necessarily for the team. She's obviously a big part of it. But everything else in terms of arena, fans, marketing, et cetera, was going to be about number 22. So in one sense, you had an idea, okay, this is going to be crazy. My guess would be nothing can truly prepare you for that until you live it. So what part of the Caitlin Clark experience immediately jumps out at you and goes, my God, I see this every night, and I can't believe it?
Yeah, so for me personally, in my first year of having the honor of being the play-by-play radio broadcaster with the team, it would go back to the preseason and the exhibition game that they played in Iowa City, and that was Caitlin's preseason debut this year. And, the fact that she made her first three as she got hacked, and then, she made that shot from nearly mid-court, 2 seconds into the shot clock. I think that was kind of the electricity was dialed up literally from the get-go. In the preseason, and that certainly has set the tone here for this year, which obviously we went back to was really just carrying over from last year too. But I would say the one part of this experience that has and all in all it's all exceeded what anyone could hope for. But I think it is awesome that even though it was disappointing that Caitlin has missed a fair share of games so far this year due to injury, and I know there was reporting on how ticket sale prices were down, and that makes sense, right? But I mean, I can tell you this, people still showed up, like 20,000 in Chicago, top 10 crowd in WNBA history in Dallas. People, even if, good for them, they didn't have to fork over as much money in some cases, maybe, they still showed up and showed out. And so I think, that's what's really cool about this thing too, is that there is the true growth overall. It's not only, yes, Caitlin is far and away the most popular player, but it is spreading beyond that.
John, listen, as the team is still kind of figuring it out, but they still have, even at a game over 500, they have wins against the New York Liberty, one of the best teams in the league, the Commissioner's Cup against the Minnesota Lynx, who is clearly, from a record standpoint, the best team in the league. So at their best, they have shown, they can beat anybody. Of the teams you have seen so far, what's the team you go, hey, that's the one to beat. That's the one that you've got to find a way to get by come postseason time for the Indiana Fever. Who's been the most impressive team, not the one that gives you a paycheck?
Yeah, out of the 13 teams in the league, Minnesota and New York at times have shown themselves to be on a different level. They both started 9-0 out of the gates. Now, the Fever have only had one game against Minnesota. It was that Commissioner's Cup championship. And so if you grade off of that, you think, oh, the Fever are arguably the class of the league. I think, admittedly, Minnesota had one of their poorest games of the season, although then most recently they lost to Chicago, a bottom-tier team over the weekend. So I think we've come to learn now here as we hit the midpoint of the season that there is a good deal of parity in the league. New York, after their hot start, Fever were the first team to beat them. They've dealt with some injuries and players out of the lineup themselves, so they've kind of come down to earth. Phoenix, the Mercury, they're the only team the Fever have not played yet this year. They're the third best team. So I think really to not answer the question, but answer it, there's not one team that's so imposing. Caitlin was actually talking about this just yesterday. It's going to be really fun throughout this regular season and then even into the playoffs. I suppose in a way similar to what we saw in the Eastern Conference of the NBA where, the path was open for anybody to take it, and it was the Pacers who stepped up. It kind of looks similarly, and there's no OKC that, has had clearly the best season in the league and seems unbeatable because Minnesota, they're like a really steady team, but they're not overwhelming. So, I think the Fever, if they can keep this up, what they've shown here these last couple of games, because Atlanta's a top-tier team that they handled on Friday night, definitely a team that can contend for a championship.
Final thing before we let you go, All-Star Weekend is coming to Indianapolis. What, if any, official responsibilities do you get to have for All-Star Weekend?
I think I officially get to just to soak it in. So, really excited to see all that's going on. Friday night, 3-point contest. Yesterday on ABC, Ryan Rucco maybe spilled the beans that Caitlin will be competing. I think everyone kind of expects that, but haven't had an official announcement yet. Skills competition, too. and then coming up Saturday, the game itself. So, I think the city's going to have an amazing vibe. And, I'm looking forward to being a spectator. Maybe try to get over to the Fever Fest where Sydney Colson is going to be performing stand-up comedy. So obviously there's the 3 all-star players, but the Fever are going to have a presence throughout the city, throughout all the events.
A night off in Boston for John and company tonight than it is on the road each of the next 2 nights again. Here the Indiana Fever, their last 2 games before the all-star break, right here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Tomorrow night against the Sun in Boston, then against the Liberty on Wednesday night. Thanks for the time, my friend. Safe travels.
Yep, Rake, thanks to you. And one last quick thing, you're going to have to get Aaliyah Boston on as a guest for a Soccer Saturday, because not only is today Aaliyah Boston Day throughout Massachusetts, she also became an investor in the NWSL team here in Boston. So you can talk some soccer with AB.
You give AB my number, and she can reach out. If she wants on the show this week, I'm even hosting the show this week. We'll make sure it happens. All right, buddy?
I think she's got plans this Saturday with All-Star, but somewhere
next
down
Saturday.
The line,
all right, fair enough.
Yep. All right.
Thanks,
Sounds
pal.
good. Yeah.
John Nolan, radio voice of the Indiana Fever. And again, you're home for the Fever right here. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. From a guy in his first season being a radio voice in Indianapolis to a guy that's been here for 50 years strong, the voice of the Tribe, Howard Kellman. His 7,000th call was on Friday night, and he will join us next. Greg Rakestraw filling in for JMV, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
listen here. He's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy. Now go away.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I'm sure if John was here, he would tell you that soundbite is from The Life of Brian, and it's one of his favorite movies of the Monty Python series. Maybe not. By the way, are you in charge this week? Did I see that right? Yeah. Authority figure Eddie Garrison just walked in. Such an authority figure, he wasn't even producing Jake Query's show today. He was running the operation with Todd and Jeff and Scotty all on vacation. And I get to join them. Now we're on all vacation together, but I get to leave here in a few days. But until then, you're stuck with me. Greg Rakestraw is my name. Hello, how are you? John is back on Wednesday, back with us now. And we referenced him in the previous hour of the show, and thrilled that he is joining us here off the top of the 4 o'clock hour. He has been the voice of the Indianapolis Indians, well, for quite some time, long enough to be a man that called his 7,000th Indianapolis Indians game on Friday night. It is Howard Kellman that joins us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Greg, I'm doing great, and Eddie Garrison around too. I mean, this is really special.
Absolutely. Eddie just adds a little panache to the get-together. Have you been keeping track all these years as to number of games that you do in a season for moments like Friday night?
Well, what happened was in 2017, I called my 6,000th.
Yep.
And so I was able to figure that out easily from then on. The next 1,000. I missed a few games when I broadcast for the Yankees the last 3 years. But other than that, we were able to keep track of it, and it was wonderful to be able to say that. And had a great time calling number 7,001, 2, and 3 as well. You know, the beauty of it, Greg, one day you have a 2-1 game, and the next day you have an 8-7 game, and that's really special. So to me, I always have felt doing baseball on radio is one of the best jobs in the broadcast business, and every day still is a labor of love and a great thrill.
It's one of the reasons why, again, I understand this thing better than most of your friends would, as I tell people, this is why, while I enjoy doing talk shows like this one, I prefer to do play-by-play because something happens different in every game. There is something unique to every game that you do that is different than whatever the case may be. So I am nodding my head in agreement with you and understanding accordingly. When you first got to Indianapolis in the 70s, how long did you think you would be in Indianapolis, Howard?
I figured I'd be here a few years.
Yeah.
And, my goal was to broadcast Major League Baseball. And during the 1980s, when I started applying from a period of 1982 to 88, I was extremely close several different times. And then in 1990, I was hired by Dennis Casey and Channel 40 to announce the high school football and basketball game of the week. And when I got that, I said, wait a minute, why do I have to leave? I'm announcing baseball, basketball, and football. So I stopped applying at that particular time to big league jobs. I did put my name out about 20 years later, but it was too late at that time, and nothing really came of it. But no, I thought I'd be here a few years, and it's really been great, and working for great people, and the fans have been so supportive too that it's worked out really well.
I think I understand that the basic motivation, you love your job. You want to keep going to the ballpark every day or as often as possible. But I guess expound on that if you don't mind. What is it that drives you to keep doing this every day, Howard?
It's just so much fun to call a ball game. And to do 7,000 of them and still feel every day is a wonderful opportunity to call the game as opposed to I'm obligated to call the game today is really special. And as I said a moment ago, you know, baseball is so unpredictable. And we always have to remember, too, that baseball is the only sport where the defense has the ball. And that's why it's so unpredictable. But you just don't know what you're going to see on a given day. I love the atmosphere, too, at Victory Field. Now, I love going to Busch Stadium, too, my first 20-some-odd years. But Victory Field has a wonderful atmosphere. And you know what's really neat? With the Elements Financial Club now, and our booth actually inside of the club, when I walk out of the booth, I say hello to a lot of fans every day. And that's neat, too, and I've gotten some really nice feedback these last 5 years since we've had the Elements Financial Club. So the atmosphere is great too, but I mean, just calling the game is still a wonderful thrill every day.
Have you set a target at all in terms of, all right, I've gotten to 7K, I want to get to 7,500, I want to get to 8K, or I've been here X amount of years, I want to get to this, number of years. Have you thought about it in those terms at all, Howard?
I haven't, even though next year is would be my 50th season. I just feel real good, take care of myself. I'm in really good health. And so I just like to keep going. It's not like I want to go play 36 holes of golf tomorrow. I want to keep going as long as I can do the job and as long as the Indians want me to do the job. So it's just a terrific opportunity every day.
Howard Kellman, again, the voice of the Indianapolis Indians. They, too, get an all-star break as well. They are now off until Friday night. They have a weekend set in Nashville. Back at home against the Mud Hens as of next Tuesday at 7:05. IndyIndians.com, of course, has more information. Howard, have you started to kind of, measure like your tenure with the Indians? How many, if any, other broadcasters have been with a team longer than you have at this point?
See, that is something I did think about and found, all I had to do was think about it. And nobody in the minor leagues, although Jim Weber got 49 with Toledo as well. He passed away, unfortunately, last year. But next year, if all goes well and I do my 50th season, I'll become the first ever guy to broadcast 50 seasons with a minor league team. Now, you have a number of baseball broadcasters who announce for 50 seasons or more, but not with the same team, like Ernie Harwell, Harry Carey, Milo Hamilton. But those who have announced 50 or more with the same team, starting with Vin Scully, he had 67 with the Dodgers. Then you have Denny Matthews in Kansas City. He's been there since 1969. Bob Bucher had more than 50 years with the Milwaukee Brewers. And you have Mike Shannon, who had 50 years with the St. Louis Cardinals. And so I think those are the guys. There might be one other, but those are the guys who've done 50 or more years with one team.
If I pointed, and again, this is a hell of an ask, but if I said, all right, you've done now 7,001, 2 or 3 games with the team. If I said, give me your favorite call, moment, game, memory, etc., what's the one that immediately comes flooding back to your mind?
Game 7 of the 1986 American Association Championship Series, which I think is the most exciting moment in the history of the team. The bases were loaded, 2 outs, the bottom of the 9th. Of course, Game 7, so you're 3 games apiece. The Indians are playing Denver. Montreal was our parent team. Cincinnati was Denver's parent team. So Rob Dibble was pitching for Denver, and they're a strike away from the win. A 2-2 count on Billy Moore, a right-hand batter. And Billy on a fastball, I'm glad he threw him a fastball and not a slider. Billy on a fastball drilled a base hit to left field to score the tying and winning runs. It was magic was our motto from that. You can't get any more dramatic than that. And also, that was the first of 4 straight championships that the Indianapolis Indians won from 1986 through 89.
All right, so since you're talking about championships, frankly, it is harder to make the playoffs now than it used to be. There is honestly less of an emphasis on that at this level of baseball than it used to be. However, the Indianapolis Indians potentially are in contention to play in a very limited postseason in September because they've had a really good year, especially at home. The Indians are 18 games over 500. Folks, if you have gone to watch the Tribe at Victory Field, there is a 76% chance you have seen a win because they're 38-13 on the season. What has made this team so fun to be around this year, Howard?
Terrific starting pitching from several guys, Hunter Barco and Bubba Chandler. Those are the 2 big prospects, the 2 biggest prospects we have. We don't have prospects among the position players. We have veterans, and they're good players, and they're playing good AAA baseball, and much better than some of the other teams, much better. So that's one of the big reasons why the Indians have won is the talent level. But when you have good starting pitching and you have some good relief pitching we've gotten too, you usually should do pretty well as long as you have some offense. Now, the parent club, Pittsburgh, has gotten pretty good starting pitching and pretty good relief pitching, but they're last in the majors in runs scored. And by the way, when you look at a team perspective, runs scored is a much more important stat than team batting average is. So it's because of those things that we're doing quite well. The way the playoff format is, and you're right in what you said, it used to be through 2019, we had a 14-team international league, 3 divisional winners, and a wild card. It was just like the major leagues before they expanded the wild cards. But now they added 6 teams to our league. So we have a 20-team league, and we have 2 halves, a first-half champ, which is Jacksonville, and a second-half champ. So you have to be one of 20 teams, the best one of 20 teams, to make it to the postseason. And the Indians are right there along those numbers right now for the second half. They fell a few games shy in the first half. So as you said, and so accurately so, it will be very tough to get in the postseason no matter how good you are.
All right, Howard Kellman, our guest. Again, Greg Rakestraw filling in for JMV, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. One thing that has also changed, that what you indicated was a change that happened after COVID. Another thing that has happened after COVID as well, the life of a broadcaster has changed significantly. And I remember this from being affiliated with being behind the scenes with 2 different affiliates of Indianapolis Indians on the radio over the years. I vividly remember 144 games, 152 days, 3 of those off days were the All-Star break. That's it. Now, a day like today, you're used to having some time to yourself on a Monday because every Monday is an off day. Again, you've got 4 days off this week, but normally you get every Monday off, and then it's 6 games in one town, and more or less you alternate every week. How has that changed the life of the players and, frankly, the life of the broadcaster I'm talking to?
It's much easier doing it that way, having that day off. Now, the other side of it is they did expand our schedule, though.
Right.
So instead of finishing Labor Day, we finish on September 21st, 3 weeks later. And we have those Mondays off, and we play 150 games instead of the 144 that you mentioned. And the reason for that is this. There was a change a few years ago with regard to September call-ups. And it used to be that you could expand your roster in the major leagues come September 1st up to 40 players. Now, what happened was, and the spirit of the rule was all those years, hey, if a guy has a really nice year in AAA, give him a call-up. So a couple of guys might get called up, and that was that. But around 12, 15 years ago or so, everything changed because the Reds, for instance, said, now, wait a minute. If we call up Billy Hamilton, we can have him pinch run in the 8th inning. If we call up this left-handed pitcher, and other teams started doing it too, left and right, if we call up this left-handed pitcher, he can get an out for us in the 7th inning. And so before you knew it, teams were calling up 6 and 7 players just to get one out or face one hitter, and the spirit of the rule was last. So everybody said, we got to do something about this. So they changed it, and instead of calling up as many as you want or as few as you want, each team calls up 3 players September 1st, and that's it, no more, no less. Now, in accordance with that, the reason they expanded our schedule is because before, you had 6 or 7 call-ups. If somebody got hurt in the major leagues, you had players ready. But now with only 3 call-ups, they want players ready in case somebody gets hurt, so that's why we're playing until September 21st as opposed to Labor Day.
Before I let you go, I mentioned that obviously you had a hallmark accomplishment with 7,000 games called for the Indianapolis Indians. Victory Field celebrated a birthday on Friday as well, its 29th birthday. Why has that park seemingly aged so well?
Well, it's because of the front office of the Indianapolis Indians and what a great job they did. It starts with Max Schumacher, because when they were negotiating with the city for the lease, at Busch Stadium, the city took care of everything. And it wasn't always done as quickly as you'd want it to be done. So Max did a very smart thing. He said to the CIB and the city, he said, look, we will pay and do all the upkeep at Victory Field. And in exchange for that, I think we got some sweet money that we ordinarily would have turned over from some of the suites to the city. So that was the big, big key and a great move with great vision. And I mean that front office, the operations department, the maintenance people, they do a wonderful job for this ballpark to look brand new, and it's 29 years old is really something special.
Finally, before we let you go, you're used to having one day off. You have 4. Like, you next, quote unquote, officially go to work at like 7:30 on Friday night. What are you doing with a week off in the middle of July?
Well, I look forward to those. At some of the dealerships this morning, some of the car dealerships doing some talks, and have lunch out and dinner out with Robin and some friends the next few days. So we'll be staying around here, and it's a nice break. A couple of years ago, we went to the Speedway Museum, which was absolutely terrific, and now they've redone it, so that's going to be in our plans too.
Very cool. Well, again, I'm so happy for you on 7K. Always happy for you when good thing happens to a good man such as yourself. I'm looking forward to celebrating your number 50 next year, my friend. Let's talk again soon.
Greg, I thank you very much. You've been a great friend over the years, and I thank you for that as well.
You got it. Howard Kellman, the voice of the Indianapolis Indians, joining us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. And again, the team has had a really good year. It's kind of secondary, and I'm not trying to minimize that, but the Indianapolis Indians have been wise, and minor league baseball has been wise to say, hey, we want you to come enjoy the game, but the game is part of the show, and few do it better than do the Indianapolis Indians. But it is nice to go, hey, the team's been really stinking good. And much like last year became a thing when Paul Skeens was here for as long as he was. And think about it, he was basically here for 6 or 7 weeks and still pitched long enough in the majors to be an all-star as he is again. Bubba Chandler, is he Paul Skeens? Maybe not, but he's a hell of a prospect too. And he's now been here for the entirety of the first half of the season for the Indianapolis Indians. While the schedule is extended from what it used to be Labor Day was the last day of the season. Well, let's be honest, at least in these parts, some of the best weather we have all year is in September. As someone that spent, 5 hours outside today, thank you to the folks at Crispus Attucks and the Alumni Letterman's Association. Got to play in their golf outing. Again, it was a morning outing, timed out very well to be in here. As much as I am enjoying your company listening and James's company here and talking about French death metal and things like that, I'm really enjoying the air conditioning from being outside for 5 hours. Well, I bring that up in this conversation because now the Indianapolis Indians play 3 weeks into September, when typically the weather in September and October is kind of why you live here. It tends to be kind of the best time of the year. That being said, the Indianapolis Indians are down to 4 home series the rest of the year. They're at home on the 22nd of July. And again, all homestands. Sometimes you get 12 games in a row. Oftentimes it's 6. July 22nd, August 5th, August 26th, and September 9th. That's it. 24 home dates left this season for the Indianapolis Indians. So thanks to Howard for being a friend, and thanks to Howard for being on the show, and congratulations on 7,000 games. Now, we had kind of a legend/legacy caller on the program in Fulton. Fulton, a regular on the show. I have been derelict in my duties and leaving Fulton on for too long. Let's fix that now. Fulton, how are you?
Hello, Greg.
What's
How
up,
you
buddy?
doing, Greg?
I'm good.
Well, I'm turning 26 this Sunday.
An early happy birthday to you, Fulton.
Thank you. Yep. As John told you, I'll be on stage of First Minute Pyro next Wednesday.
Yep.
Yep, I'll be on now.
Very cool. Well, what can I help you with today, Fulton? Anything in particular, or you just want to say hello?
Well, I was thinking, do we know if Anthony Richardson is going to be the quarterback for the Colts this year?
I think Anthony's going to play at some point in time. But Fulton, thanks for the phone call, buddy. You take care of yourself. I'm back tomorrow. You call again tomorrow as well, Fulton. Thank you. Let's face it, that conversation, I don't think it gets fully answered next week. But everything that I would tell you on that front is that I expect it to be Daniel Jones at the start of the year because of Anthony dealing with injuries and because of what I saw in the open workouts that I was able to see in the months of May and in June. But the good news is, Fulton and everybody else that's listening, you can go see it for yourself. Again, Colts training camp first practice is next Wednesday. And the Colts have more open practices and more opportunities for you, the fans, to go watch them get ready for the upcoming season than almost any other team. Now, I think the number of total practices down that you get to watch is only 13 at this point. Part of it is the fact that every team now wants to have some level of joint practice work together. So, like, for example, the Colts play in Baltimore August 7th. The Colts will fly to Baltimore August 4th. They'll have a practice against the Ravens on the 5th, game against the Ravens on the 7th. Packers are here August 16th. Packers will practice with the Colts on August 14th. That's a 3 o'clock practice, and that is the last chance you have to watch a Colts practice this year. They will not have open practices before the final preseason game. That's against the Bengals. They will have a joint practice with the Bengals before playing that game on August the 23rd. So, gone are the days of 2-a-days and 6-7 weeks of training camp. That doesn't exist anymore. But you still have more access to this team than most other teams allow. But Fulton, to answer your question, is going to be Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones. I still believe it's going to be an open competition. But right now, I do think there is a definitive leader, and I think it's Daniel Jones. But frankly, you don't need my explanation on this. Your own eyes will be able to see it next Wednesday if you go to training camp. Practice next Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and let's see, at 10. Next Saturday's practice is at 4. I'm going to have like a live stream with me on July 26th because I think it's going to be, I'm going to do soccer Saturday at 9 a.m. here or at the track. Then I will do 2 hours of Brickyard weekend pre-race stuff with Kurt Darling at noon. I'm going to sneak up to Grand Park and watch about an hour or so of practice at 4. And then I will head downtown to do the Indy 11 game at 7. Sounds like a fun Saturday, right? Right. Fulton, I'll talk to you tomorrow, buddy. You call anytime. 317-239-1070. Last 2 segments have been me and play-by-play buddies. Next 2 segments can be me and you. And again, as I alluded to earlier, the bosses aren't here this week. We can talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. If Eddie Garrison's the adult in the room, we can have ourselves a good time. Back in a moment. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
the Bet365 Command Center. Get your race updates here all month long and make sure to enter for your chance to win $500 by predicting the winner of this year's race on July 27th. Go to 1075thefan.com to enter. Now, here's your 2025 race update brought to you by Bet365.
There will be a Brickyard 400. 13 days from now, you can hear it here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Shane Van Gisbergen wins his second consecutive NASCAR event. They have both been on the road course variety. 2 weeks ago it was in Chicago, or last week it was in Chicago. This week it was in Sonoma, in wine country. They go back to the ovals this weekend. They're going to be at Dover, Delaware. Then they come here, and again tomorrow at 3:30. Indianapolis' own Evansville claims him as well. Adam Alexander from TNT, and frankly, all things motorsports. He'll join us, talk about the upcoming Brickyard 400, and that is the latest from the Bet365 Command Center.
The Ride with JMV.
I am the cream, yeah. The cream of the crop. And there is no one that does it better.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
No, Randy Poffo, there was not. God rest your soul. Greg Rakestraw in for JMV, 93.5 and 107.5 at The Fan. By the way, today, and is happening last night too, is MLB Draft Day. And I've been kind of keeping an eye on guys with ties from the state of Indiana. A couple of Indiana players went relatively early in the draft. A third in Cole Gilly also played at Indiana State. I think he went in round 10. Jack Marachnik from Brebeuf and Butler just went in round number 11 to the Washington Nationals. Young man that I know will join us tomorrow in Gabe Pentecost played at Taylor University. I think went 12-2 and had 116 strikeouts in 80 innings playing for Taylor. He'll join us on the show tomorrow. And so, yes, I'm back tomorrow. Sorry about that. But you may be hearing from some young men that just accomplished a dream of being drafted by a Major League Baseball team. Could be one more person we had on that list. So just kind of something that is on my radar in terms of conversations to have over the next day or two. Stephen Holden, the 5 o'clock hour. You've missed John Nolan, Howard Kellman. Go back to the podcast page. Listen anytime at 1075thefan.com. Something else that should be on your radar by now, because Lord knows we talk about it a lot. That is the upcoming Fan Invitational Golf Outing presented by Franciscan Health on Thursday, August 7th. Tee time is 10 a.m. In other words, you don't have to worry about working that day. Is this French death metal that I'm listening to, by the way?
No, this is from Caddyshack.
Ah, yes. This is the lovely and now departed. Oh, my God. I'm going to mess up her name. John, of course, has her name. I see her face. And, frankly, the goods that are in this series as well. You'll get nothing in like it, says Ted Knight. Jeff Rickard, Kevin Bowen, James Boyd, Jake Query, and JMV will all be in attendance. Legends Golf Club. Again, make sure you get your foursome together now. 1075thefan.com has more information. 317-239-1070 is the telephone number. You can always tweet me at Greg Rakestraw if you would like to. Open the show by kind of speaking my piece on Miles Turner, because we frankly have reached kind of a natural end of that story, at least until the schedule is out and we can kind of say, hey, this is when Miles will come back with the Milwaukee Bucks, a team that obviously has developed pretty quickly into a rival for the Indiana Pacers, and now this is a new and accelerated chapter for it. That's when kind of the next step will happen. Unless you have somebody that is a current Indiana Pacer that kind of goes off about what Miles had to say. If it trips anything on their radar, it would me. And again, I had James cut up a bunch of sound from it. The one that got everybody's attention, whether you heard Miles say it or not, but you saw the reference to it on social media from Friday heading into the weekend, and I'm now bringing it up late Monday afternoon as well, is basically saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, I see the Milwaukee Bucks as a more competitive alternative than playing for the Indiana Pacers. And that's the line that got most of our attention locally. Now, some have defended. I would tend to disagree, and I guess I can leave it at that. So I will leave it to you, the listening audience. If you want to continue to have the Miles Turner conversation, this segment and next segment is the time to have said conversation. 317-239-1070 at Greg Rakestraw on Twitter. Email the program too, Greg at 1070thefan.com. If you would like to take this in another direction, we can certainly do that too. And again, Fulton that called us and was on the last segment of the show jumped straight to the crux of the matter on the Indianapolis Colts. No beating around the bush. No, sir. It was, hey, who's the starting quarterback? And again, I tend to think that it's going to be Daniel Jones, but I think that has that die officially been cast? Absolutely not. But the obvious multi-million-dollar question is going to be, just how much of Anthony do we see in preseason workouts? Just how much do we see of him in preseason games? Is his shoulder going to truly allow this to be a battle? And frankly, I'm not sure I've got a good answer for you, but I know who does. His name is Shane Steichen, and his boss's name is Chris Ballard, and both those guys will be available to the media next week. So we can have that conversation, but frankly, the answers start to be said to you, and you can inform your own opinion of it when training camp practice starts some 9 days from now. To the phone lines we go. Dave, then Eric, then you at 317-239-1070. Hello, Dave. How are you?
Hello, my friend. How are you?
It has been too long, brother. You good?
I'm good. Hey, I got to ask you, have you caught any of Quarterback Season 2?
I have not yet. What have I missed?
Okay. So it's Joe Burrow, who you know's my boy.
Yep.
But I got to admit, it makes him look like a mama's boy. And Jared Goff, who, if he's got a swear jar in the household, his retirement's funded. And then Kirk Cousins, who maybe after 12 years and all your whining, you ought to just walk away.
Good to know.
It's oh, my goodness. He whines about everything. I'm not good enough anymore. I can't do this anymore. And this was during the 24 season. So no wonder they're not sure what they're going to do with him in Atlanta.
Fair enough.
So I'm going to give you a number. 2.5 is the over-under on how many games Riley Leonard starts.
You think it gets to number 3, huh?
Yep.
All right. Anything else, my friend?
No, but you tell the lovely Mrs. Rakestraw I said hello, please.
And you tell Mrs. Grenoble I said the same, all right?
I will, Greg. Have a great day.
See you, buddy. Now, see, some of my friends just, call me when I'm doing a radio show. They don't like call me in real life. Dave, you're welcome to call me in real life anytime. Good to talk to you, brother. Let's go to Eric's telephone call next at 317-239-1070. Hello, Eric.
Hey, Greg. How you doing?
I'm good, sir. How can I help you?
Well, I was listening to you about Miles Turner. I've listened the last week or so on the radio shows between Jake and JMV, yourself and Derek and everybody on there, and mixed comments. And to me, I'm happy that Miles Turner's gone, because I didn't like how he played his first 8 years here. I felt like the offense was real stagnant and everything else for 8 years. And in the last 2 years, it got a lot better. He played a lot better. The offense wasn't as much through him. And then you get to the playoffs this year, and we all saw it. Against Milwaukee, he did all right. Against Cleveland, okay. He got owned by Towns every single game, even the last 4 minutes of every single game we played against the Knicks. The Pacers had to put Obi at the 5 and playing with Siakam. And then in the finals, he never even showed up. But, yet there's people actually out there that think that we should have paid him $100 million and the Pacers as an organization go over the salary cap when their ace is out for a whole year. I'm excited about the 3 centers we got. I like Huff. I like the potential he has. I like the potential Wiseman has. and Isaiah Jackson being your third center, I think that's a really good thing. None of them are maybe as good as Miles, but two of them have a lot of potential, and that's what I think.
Eric, thanks for the phone call, buddy. I appreciate it. And obviously, I have a chance, give you the chance to give your opinion. I'll have to hang up on Eric because I'm hanging on my own microphone. Sorry, I'm a substitute. That Eric, thanks for the telephone call. I'm up against it time-wise. I'm going to respond to what Eric had to say when we come back from the next time out. You want to talk on that subject? You know the drill. It's not that complicated. You call the show. James answer the phones. We put you on hold. You hear this. That's your cue to talk to me. 317-239-1070. More Miles Turner conversation. Or just friends of mine that want to catch up. That's fine, too. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
He's my homeboy, my rotten soldier. He's my sweet cheese, my good time boy.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
James said we're giving away Bare Naked Ladies tickets. Joined by Fastball and who else?
Sugar Ray.
Thank you, Mark McGrath and company. That show will be Sunday, July 20th, so 6 days from now, at Everwise Amphitheater downtown. Caller number 37, just kidding. Caller number 4 right now at 317-239-1070. You're getting a pair of tickets to go see Bare Naked Ladies. And I got to tell you, when James first went to break, he said, we're going to do Bare Naked Ladies. And I go, great. And he said tickets. And I'm like, I wasn't as excited. Dad jokes for days. Mrs. Rakestraw probably would have a problem with that. Thankfully, she's not listening to the show. 317-239-1070. Again, call the number 4 is getting tickets to go see Bare Naked Ladies. And thankfully, he did play my request for like the OG Bare Naked Ladies song, the original, The Old Apartment, from back in my college days. I did, and we talked about this with Michael Young when I was in for Jake on Friday from my X103 days. We had a few Bare Naked Ladies songs we would spin back in those days, and some of those are pretty good. Some of them are a little poppy. That one is kind of the original one that I like, so I'm sure they'll be dialing that one up if you see them in concert. James is talking to the winner as we speak, so if you're calling in to talk to James for tickets, you can stop calling. If you're calling in to talk to James, then to talk to me, you can keep calling. 317-239-1070. I didn't have time to respond to Eric's telephone call before we had to get to our next time out. I will do that now. Yes, for those of you that were anti-Miles Turner, Friday was a glorious day for you because it gave you all the ammunition you needed to say, see, I told you. I almost feel weird defending Miles after Friday's press conference. But again, even with the flaws that he had, I thought he was a fantastic fit as the team was constructed. And yes, including Tyrese Halliburton. And yes, I understand how good of a player is Tyrese Halliburton after he comes back. We don't know. I tend to believe in the advancements we have had in medical science and that Tyrese isn't exactly going to be a bum when he comes back after missing all of next season due to that torn Achilles. That, kind of treat it like after an ACL tear, players can be still pretty good. After Tommy John surgery, pitchers can be pretty good. After an Achilles surgery, players can still be really good. So I tend to think it's more of a one-year dip for the Pacers. But if you were not on as part of Team Turner, so to speak, Team Miles, yeah, you had a lot more people on your bandwagon after Friday at about 4:30 in the afternoon than you had before that. So in terms of being excited about the now three-headed monster at center for the Indiana Pacers, some combination of James Wiseman, Isaiah Jackson, and a guy that looks like a stretched-out version of James, our producer, that is coming from the Memphis Grizzlies. I hope it works. And again, I also think it's unfair to judge those three players, potentially, based on what solely happens this coming year. Because, again, you don't have a player like Tyrese Halliburton who's going to be feeding them the ball. I think Andrew Nemhart is going to be really good. We know what T.J. McConnell can be, but it's a different curve that you're grading on this coming year. While you can tell from my tone of voice and my perspective, when we talked about this in the opening segment of the show, when we kind of rehashed in the last segment of the show, I was not happy and am not happy with said reasoning being given by Miles in his press conference on Friday. And there is a fair point to say, at what point in time do you say, hey, listen, this is the money we're going to pay you. This is what we think you are worth. And did the Milwaukee Bucks supersede that to sign him? They probably did. And is there a possibility that a year or two from now, me or John or whoever might be sitting in this seat might go, hey, man, you know what? Pacers probably dodged a bullet there. Pacers are probably in a better cap situation than they would have been had they decided to match or be in the vicinity of what the Milwaukee Bucks were ready to offer. Maybe. It may play out that way. And maybe I'm still going through like the 12 stages of grief about knowing you were, this is for the viewing audience here, not the listening audience. You were this close. You were so damn close to an NBA championship. So close. And maybe it's part of me just wanting to see this team be held intact as much as possible. But it's not the way that life works. And I said this on Friday, and it obviously still rings true some 3 days later. But, man, doesn't it feel like an entire summer has happened since the Indiana Pacers played in Game 7 of the NBA Finals? It was 22 days ago. It was 3 weeks ago yesterday. And from the time that game tipped off, your star player, is out for the next season. And your starting center plays for your biggest rival in your division. It's a lot of stuff that's happened in those 22 days. So, do I feel a little less bad about Miles playing for another team than I did 3 days ago? Yeah, I probably do. Absolutely. That is the case. But yet, even though, when Eric calls in and says, didn't like him, thought the offense was stagnant, thought he didn't bring it against Cat, thought he didn't bring it against Oklahoma City, my immediate response is still to go, be careful what you wish for, you might get it. Because, yeah, was Miles the prototypical 5 in certain areas? No. But did he fit the way you wanted to play the game? And was his tenure more good than bad with the Indiana Pacers? Yes. I think that was the case. 317-239-1070 at Greg Rakestraw. Email the show anytime. Greg at 1070thefan.com. No more guests on the Miles Turner topic, but I'm happy to have those conversations with you for the remainder of the show. Stephen Holder coming up at some point in time early in the 5 o'clock hour. We have just kind of grazed the conversations regarding the Indianapolis Colts. Obviously, that starts to amp up, knowing we are now single-digit days away from the start of training camp. So again, it is still seemingly, again, nothing like visual references, those of you listening, those of you watching via Twitter, YouTube, etc. Consider this like a seesaw. Conversation is still tilting towards the Indiana Pacers. We're about to hit that crossover point, if not doing so, in the next couple of days, where it's going to be more Colts, and it's going to be more Colts, and it's going to be all Colts. And that's okay. We'll talk about whatever you want to talk about, though, for the most of the 5 o'clock hour. Other than Stephen Holder, it's just you and me. 317-239-1070. Greg Rakestraw filling in for JMV. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
The Ride with JMV.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here?
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Well, yeah, of course it was hard. Like I said, I mentioned before, you spend the entirety of your career there. You make a lot of relationships in that city. It's crazy, man. You watch kids grow up, kids I started with that were in middle school or in college now, little stuff like that, as you know. But to answer that question, there was alignment issues, I think, on that side, as far as me and them. And, just out of respect for their organization, out of respect for this organization, I'm not going to speak on that too much. But, again, this was just the best decision, for me, moving forward, and the best fit, I would think.
Miles Turner moving on. We have known that for the better part of a couple of weeks now. Miles had a chance to speak to the media in Vegas as his first kind of appearance as a Milwaukee Buck on Friday. And again, we have kind of hit the news cycle on that. It happened kind of during the show, so obviously John had a chance to react to it. And frankly, we'll keep talking about it if you want to keep talking about it, both today but also in future days. 317-239-1070. Hit me up on Twitter at Greg Rakestraw. Email the show to Greg at 1070thefan.com. The man that has been the primary source of Miles Turner conversation from a positive standpoint until Friday afternoon would be the guy that I'm filling in for in JMV. John getting a couple of planned days off today and tomorrow. He's back on Wednesday. He's back out on Thursday. He's back on Friday. He never misses the takeover, so you know that he will be here on Saturday, and I plan, for what it's worth, my guess is there's a lot of crossover from this show to the JMV takeover, and you do not need to have your arm twisted. You don't need to be nudging and listening to John on a Saturday night. You enjoy rocking out and hanging out with JMV on Saturday. I plan on having a very unique phone call with John early in the show Saturday night. Professional radio tease that takes 5 days to build. So file that away for your Saturday evening listening pleasures when I make a very special phone call to John coming up on Saturday night. From my buddy Todd, my old neighbor Todd. Hello, Todd. I miss you. Thanks for the text as well. Spot on as always. Bullet dodged on Miles. Todd, I appreciate that. I'm not sure it's a bullet dodged on Miles. I'm saying we may be saying that a year or two from now. And again, I also don't know if it's fair to judge James Wiseman, Isaiah Jackson, and Jay Huff based on what happens this coming season. But I am still of the belief that this is a team that can be a playoff team. What I don't know if they have the pieces for is to make another deep playoff run. But then again, we have underestimated the Indiana Pacers the last 2 years, and maybe we shouldn't do that again. You understand why, and it's primarily because of Tyrese, not because of Miles. But do I think this is a better team with Miles Turner than without Miles Turner? I do. I think Miles staying would have made them better. Again, there is a certain limit as to how much resources you are going to give. And obviously, that number changed once you knew what Tyrese's injury situation was going to be for the coming season. But I am not ready to just give up on the next year, because you give me a core of Andrew Nembhard, Benedict Mathurin, Aaron Nesmith, Pascal Siakam, whomever your starter is going to be at the 5. Obi Toppin, maybe getting more minutes off the bench. Jarris Walker now having more of a defined role. You know exactly what TJ McConnell is. Still needs to be space for Ben Shepherd to be able to play. Again, this is not going to be a team that goes to 20-something wins. And not even kind of the purgatory days of, say, after the brawl. You know, the Dunleavy-Murphy days where this team would play hard and compete and win 36 games and miss the playoffs. No, I still think this is a mid-40s win team. And that may not sound that. And then it gets you all fired up after being in the NBA Finals and being a game away from winning a championship. I get that. I understand that. But again, I don't think this is a bunch of chumps. And again, call me naive, call me dumb. I don't think the sky is falling. Like, if you want to be beyond pissed that this team played for a championship and likely won't have that opportunity this coming year, yeah, I get that. But I also don't think, I think it would be wrong to overreact and go, all right, we have to blow this entire thing up. I think that would be a mistake too. Like going, well, we got to move Siakam now too. No. But not sure if we're going to re-sign Neesmith or extend him. Well, he's still got 2 years left on his deal. You got a little time there on Neesmith. Matherin's a different story. I'm not sure if the budget is there for Benedict Mathurin. I think very much Benedict Mathurin is playing for his next contract someplace else this coming year. But you know what? The Indiana Pacers can still benefit from that. If you want to talk about that, feel free. 317-239-1070. From C-Rod, if Turner wants to be competitive, maybe he should start with himself. In the biggest possible NBA game, you name an absolute egg, and then say the Pacers don't do whatever to win. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I've been pro Miles, a little less so after Friday, and it almost feels kind of weird to defend him to some degree. So I get it. So, who knew? And I talked about this and joked about this at the beginning of the show. The content gods were kind to us at the Fan because of the Pacers playing so deep into June. And who knew that Miles Turner would be a talking point of conversation, because we just kind of assumed, hey, man, they're going to keep the band together, right? Right? Didn't happen that way. But who knew we'd spend like 2 whole weeks talking about what Miles Turner was going to be not playing for the Indiana Pacers. Stephen Holder having some television responsibilities, which is why he will be joining us coming up a couple of minutes from now, 317-239-1070. So we will be joined by him coming up in just a matter of moments. Our earlier guest, which you can go back and listen to on the podcast page anytime, 1075thefan.com. Congratulations to Howard Kellman, the voice of the Indianapolis Indians in his 49th season with the team. Last week, he called his 7,000th game with the Indianapolis Indians. Had a great conversation with him. Tonight is a night off for the Indiana Fever. Tomorrow night and Wednesday night, that is not the case. They are on the road against the Connecticut Sun. That game is taking place in Boston. Then they are playing the New York Liberty on Wednesday night. And both of those games, of course, like every Indiana Fever game, can be heard on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. And those that are not can be heard on 93 WIBC. But the next 2 nights, catch the Fever on The Fan. And so their radio voice in John Nolan was kind enough to call us. My tap dancing days are over, because Stephen Holder is on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. How was your Sports Center hit?
NFL Live, actually.
I apologize for giving you the wrong show. My apologies.
I got promoted to NFL Live. I'll take it.
Do you get paid different for a Sports Center hit versus NFL Live?
Oh, huge. It's a huge difference. Yes. Oh, of course. Because, everything's a la carte in my huge contract, of course.
That's the way that it works, yes.
No, but, we were talking AFC South today, so, of course, the storyline for us is pretty obvious. We happen to be in Bristol this week for our preseason meetings and stuff, so it was a nice opportunity to talk some Colts on a big platform. I do think, this isn't what you asked me, but I do think there will be some national attention paid to how this all plays out. There is a fair amount of interest, at least certainly from my bosses, and I think elsewhere in the country, about how this all goes. I think this quarterback situation, the way the Colts are handling it, is a pretty unique approach, right? I mean, you don't see a team that had a starter last year, a somewhat established starter, bring in a $14 million quarterback and say we have open quarterback battle between 2 guys who have been starters in previous situations. That just is very rare. So it's a unique situation for sure.
What do we know? And obviously you and I talked about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and the last time we talked to Colts players was about 4 or 5 weeks ago at this point. What do we know about Anthony Richardson's shoulder from the last time we talked to Anthony Richardson? Has anything changed in that interim?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, and this was something I just addressed on television, every indication I have is that he is ready to roll.
Okay.
That does not mean they won't sort of, trot him out a little bit cautiously to start camp. That is certainly possible, but I don't anticipate him being on any kind of huge restriction or anything that is a result of shoulder pain. I've seen video evidence of him throwing the football. Looked pretty good to me. And I think all signs are go right now. So that is certainly a positive. The question is, I think there's just been this, he has to kind of overcome this narrative. It's not just, is his shoulder good? It's also, can he sort of reverse the narrative, which is that it's always something with him physically, and fair or not, that is a real perception that's out there, perhaps within his own building, right? So that is just the reality of it, and that is, I think, as much a reason why Daniel Jones is in Indy as anything else. It isn't just the inconsistency; it's the health, for sure.
I may be asking this question for the guy that does the preseason games on television, so asking for a friend. when I kind of was going through the way the training camp schedule works, there's now joint practices all 3 weeks. And typically it has been, hey, if you're going to have a joint practice or two, that's when your ones are getting your reps and not necessarily in the game. But obviously you have a quarterback competition, and you kind of want to see what those guys are doing in as much quote-unquote live fire as possible. How do you think that all adds up into what sort of playing time, at least on offense, we will see because of that quarterback competition during preseason games?
I think it's a great question. They will have to be creative in how they manage that, because if you're truly going to get a real evaluation, if this is a real battle and you're really trying to ascertain who is best prepared for this, then you have to give an opportunity for that evaluation. And so that entails giving them at least somewhat equal opportunity. You no longer have the 4 preseason games, right? We have 3, so that's, these things are harder than they used to be right off the bat, even, okay? Because they're not playing a lot of starters in that 3rd game generally. So you're talking about having 2 weeks to really figure this out, and then obviously the joint practices and practices generally. I think joint practices, you brought that up. I think that's interesting because that, as much as anything, is a bigger barometer in terms of preparation for these teams nowadays, because they just kind of dismiss the preseason games and they go hard in the joint practices. So then the question stands: who gets the majority of the reps in that scenario, and et cetera, right? So these are very delicate things that I think this coaching staff is going to have to figure out. And they'll have a plan. Don't get me wrong. They probably already have the plan and will have it going in. But deploying that plan and dealing with the twists and turns can be a challenge too. So I'm very interested. I don't have an answer for you, but I am very interested to see how that goes, and I do think it will be a challenge.
All right. Obviously, with a quarterback injury, when you have a quarterback battle, that gets 99.9 of 100% of attention. So I understand that. If there's another injury concern, it's at linebacker. So kind of same line as the AR question. What do we know, if anything, different from early June in terms of Jaden Carlisle, Zaire Franklin, and overall health?
Yeah, all I can tell you is that the anticipation, or it was anticipated that Zaire Franklin would be ready to go. He's been doing his work, his off-season physical training and so forth, I think, like he normally does. I believe he was returning, he told me, to Tampa to work with his trainer like usual. That doesn't mean he doesn't have limitations. He probably still does. And I would be surprised if he doesn't have something of a pitch count, maybe, when training camp starts. It's not an ideal situation, particularly with the young linebacker group that they have. I mean, they have obviously a very experienced guy in Zaire Franklin, but outside of that, there are a bunch of unknowns. You still have, I believe, just 2 other players in that unit that have started any games, and among them they've only started a couple. So it is. I'm a little bit surprised they haven't done anything else at that position. I thought if there was an off-season move to come, sort of post-veteran camp, it would have to be at that position. And I'm not saying I expected it, but I was definitely on the lookout for it. It still hasn't happened. So it's clearly not a priority for them, but that doesn't mean that it should be completely ignored either, right? So I am very interested to see how they navigate the combination of guys coming off injuries plus frankly, the very limited experience they have at that position. It's not an ideal situation at all.
Stephen Holder, ESPN in Bristol, joining us here. Greg Rakestraw in for JMV, The Ride on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Whenever we look at what a depth chart looks like or our preseason expectations, we never look at it as, well, somebody gets injured, that changes everything. And as you know, every day in training camp is almost like a ticking time bomb. Something is going to happen. Last year was Samson Ebukam, amongst others. So I bring that up with the wide receiver position. We can be critical of Adonai Mitchell, but at the same time, like if you say, hey, your trio is Pittman, Pierce, Downs, and you throw Warren at tight end, I kind of like that group. So knowing it could change at any point in time due to an injury, what does year 2 need to look like for A.D. Mitchell?
He is such an interesting player to me. I'm fascinated by him, and maybe for the wrong reasons, because I'm fascinated because he shows he did it again this spring. He was excellent in practice. Okay, he was, I thought, one of the stars of OTAs. But that's not the goal, right? That's not the job description. The job isn't to dominate practice. The job is to make plays on Sundays. He does not do that with any kind of regularity. They have to get him to translate what he does on the practice field to Sunday. How do you do that? I don't know, because that was a struggle for him last year. Remember, his rookie year training camp, I thought he was fantastic. You were there. You saw him. And there would be at least every other day he would make just a phenomenal play. And you kept thinking, okay, they really got to find here. And then it got to the actual season, and that did not translate. And he has to finish plays. And until he does, I can't assume that he's that player that he's showing in practice, because it just hasn't shown up on Sundays. And until he does that, I think he's going to have to earn those snaps. But they really want, the Colts and their coaches, they really want to get more out of him, because they think that he might be, just in terms of just pure talent, he might be the most singularly talented wide receiver they have. And I realize that's a bold statement, but I believe that. I think just pure talent-wise, he's like that Anthony Richardson type of talent, right? But as we see with Richardson, that isn't the whole ball game. And so that's where that's where A.D. Mitchell is. They've got to fully form that and get him to produce on Sundays. And one of the things I would say, I've asked AD about this, and he said, look, I've got to be more on the screws and just get in the playbook and just make sure I'm on top of everything. So we'll see. Maybe he's handling it with a little more seriousness this year.
A couple quick things, and then we'll let you go. Stephen Holder, ESPN, all things Indianapolis Colts. And to be blunt, I'm much more concerned typically with kind of what those of us that cover the team on a daily basis think, and I'm not one to kind of defer to like the national media opinion on the team, but just because you are in Bristol and you're with the other 31 ESPN NFL beat reporters such as yourself, what is the conversation like about this football team from those that aren't there on a daily basis such as yourself?
I think really the conversation is what you would expect, which is a conversation about quarterback. And I don't know that anyone knows what to expect. I've gotten a lot of questions about, which way do you think it's leaning? Of course, I have no idea, but if I had to guess, and I'm not a betting man because I'm very bad at it and I need my money, but if I had to guess, I think I lean a little toward Daniel Jones at this point, and that's been my answer. But I would say there's a fascination with just how they're approaching it, because it is very unusual. When you see quarterback battle, typically it's a situation where you have a rookie quarterback who's challenging for the job or something along those lines. This is such a different situation that people are very intrigued by it, and I think that's appropriate because it is unusual. So that's most of the feedback. I think that the other thing I'd say is that there's been, I think, a lot of feedback, like, people are interested in Tyler Warren and maybe what's in store for him. I think people respect the Colts defense. My colleagues, I get that sense. And so really it's like we knew coming in, right? This thing's going to boil down to quarterback, like it always does.
Finally, before we let you go, what is the first day of training camp like for you coming up next Tuesday? What is that? Is it like, all right, here we go. I can't believe we're here again. What's kind of going through your mind the first day of camp every year?
Well, first of all, it's like camp number 20, I think, overall for me, and so there'll be a little bit of time to make the donuts, a little bit.
Yep.
But it's a bittersweet time. I've said this to people I say this to people all the time at this time of year. Like, if you love football, you love this time of year, right? But you also recognize, and you get this, that your life is about to change. Your life as you know it is different once they roll the ball out there for the first time. And so it's like, I'll see you in February. That's basically where you're at with your life. It's not that bad. I'm kidding, but it definitely you definitely go from 0 to 60. This time last week you're on the beach, and then 2 weeks later it's like, all right, it's go time. Let's go. We got practice, and that's just what it is. There's no turning back.
That's kind of the way it works, my friend. Safe travels home from Bristol. I'll see you next week.
All right, you got it. Talk soon.
Stephen Holder, ESPN, joining us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Yes, again, it is about to be that time of year. And again, I have optimism if it's Daniel Jones. I do. Now, optimism to a point. Like optimism like, hey, this is can be a 10-win team. And again, when it comes to talking about the Colts from a national perspective, hell, from a local perspective, it's not that complicated. Who's the starting quarterback on September the 7th? Anything else from a conversation standpoint is secondary to whom is the starting quarterback on September the 7th. And frankly, I'm not sure if we will have an answer on that, until the neighborhood of August the 25th. That is after the third preseason game. 2 years ago, there was seemingly a rush to name Anthony a starter early. I'm not sure we'll have that this time around. I think this will be a training camp battle. Just like it's almost as equally simple to what makes this a successful season for the Indianapolis Colts. Not to go political on you, but when Bill Clinton was elected in 1992, there was a famous sign in his office that said, "It's the economy, stupid." Kind of the same thing with what makes this a successful season for the Colts. It's the playoffs, stupid. Make the stinking playoffs. Haven't made them since 2020. It's that simple. Make the playoffs. So I jokingly, reference the Ted Knight line when James dials up the Caddyshack music. And I goes, like the quote, I was playing golf today. I literally thought I could hear Chevy Chase say night putting at some point in time. And I channeled Ted Knight, and I go, well, we're waiting. And it's kind of the same thing about the Indianapolis Colts. Who's the quarterback going to be, and are you going to make the playoffs? Everything else is secondary. Everything else is filling time. Who's the quarterback going to be, and make the playoffs? You want to talk about that? Feel free. 317-239-1070. At Greg Rakestraw on Twitter. Email the program too. 2 segments of me and you. We got some like Dirks Bentley tickets to give away at some point in time as well. I have no problem bribing people to be my friends on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
the Bet365 Command Center. Get your race updates here all month long and make sure to enter for your chance to win $500 by predicting the winner of this year's race on July 27th. Go to 1075thefan.com to enter. Now, here's your 2025 race update brought to you by Bet365.
It is not race week in Indianapolis just yet. That'll be next week. But the build-up, as you can tell from our station all day long, has begun. The Brickyard 400, 13 days away. Coverage here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Again, for a second time in the month of July, road course ringer Shane Van Gisbergen. Now, he's running a full schedule, but he has won each of the last 2 weeks. First in the streets of Chicago, then yesterday in Sonoma. We go back to the Oval. We go back to the concrete. Dover is the track coming up this weekend. Again, July 27th is the Brickyard 400. Tomorrow on the show at 3:30, man, we'll have a television call. The Brickyard 400 and Adam Alexander, the pride of North Central High School, joins the show. Be sure to join us then.
The Ride with JMV.
Well, we're waiting.
93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
In case you didn't have Judge Smale's voice imprinted in your brain by me saying it twice, James doubling down on it to make sure you knew exactly what I was referencing. Waiting for the Colts season, waiting to talk about Miles Turner, waiting for the conversation to go to something else so you can chime in. Well, it's you and me on the phone lines for the remainder of the show. You got something you want to say? Now is the time. Well, if not, we'll do it again tomorrow because I'm back tomorrow from 3 to 6 as well. But 317-239-1070 is the phone number. Leon has taken advantage of the opportunity. Hello, Leon.
Hey, how you doing, Greg?
Good, sir.
So, in regards to the starting quarterback for the Colts, I have mixed feelings on it.
Yep.
When I look at the two, to me, it's clear that Anthony Richardson has a lower floor but a higher ceiling.
Yep.
And I feel like if it's Daniel Jones, I think we'll have some success, but his ceiling is going to still put us at mediocrity. And it's hard to be fired up, about going into the season expecting mediocrity.
Sure, I get that. I would say his ceiling is slightly higher, but I think your overall point is well made. I think your assessment of who has the higher top end, it is absolutely Anthony Richardson. Who has the lower floor, that is also Anthony Richardson. I think Jones, if it's Jones, I think that he could be better than mediocre because of the pieces around him on both sides of the football. Remember, he was a starting quarterback on a playoff team not that long ago, basically 3 seasons ago. So, but again, your overall point, Leon, you and I are in lockstep on that one.
Yeah, and he could, be better than expectations, than I expect, because we've seen in the last couple of years guys that have struggled, had a change of scenery, and they have blossomed. However, that's still not the norm.
Sure.
But I hope that it's truly based on performance, and that if Anthony Richardson, can't beat out Daniel Jones, then he needs to be gone. But also, Ballard needs to be gone.
I think everybody realizes that we're at an inflection point for the franchise. That's a fancy way of saying if it ain't happening now, it ain't happening for everybody. Simple as that, Leon.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. And let's face it, okay? Daniel Jones, and I'll get to John's telephone call in a matter of moments. Daniel Jones is at a crossroads point, too, and he's not even played a game yet for the Colts. But he's at a crossroads point in his career where if this doesn't go well for him, he will still have a spot in the National Football League, but he is now on a different career path. He is on a career path of being a backup quarterback. And again, it's good money if you can find it, but it's not being a starter in the National Football League. So he has the same motivation as Anthony Richardson, as Shane Steichen, as Chris Ballard, as everybody. Everybody's on the same page here, okay? In other words, if it's not successful this year, then you're at a reset point for individuals, for a franchise. Again, it's weird to me It's a strange place to be in, but it's logically where my head's at, too. There's not a lot of things that I think we have to talk about going into the season, or not a lot of things that I think are true discussion points. Everybody's in agreement. It's got to get better, or people got to get getting, for lack of a better term. Let's go to John's telephone call next, 317-239-1070. Hello, John.
Good afternoon, Greg. I've got a question for you. Without consulting Google, can you tell me the first name of Judge Smales? He actually has the first name.
Oh, goodness.
And let me give you a hint.
Yeah.
You'll never get it.
Okay. I mean, I would think Richard would be the obvious choice because we call him by a different name. What is his actual first name, John?
Okay, I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to spell it for you.
Oh, dear God.
His first name is Elihu. And you spell it Elihu.
Okay, now, where did you, not that I'm doubting you, John, where did you acquire such information?
You know, I was just watching little clips on Caddyshack, and I just came across it, and I was shocked that they went into the level of detail to actually give him a first name, and so I knew that about 3 or 4 years ago. And then when I saw the bumper music, and you alluded to it, I went back in to confirm that in fact his first name is Elihu. And it is.
And I would assume it is never actually referenced in the movie. It's just like in the script notes and the character's name, et cetera, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. That's a heck of a phone call, John. Anything else for the good of the cause today?
No, I'm a huge sports fan. I would say this, since we're talking about sports. I was shocked and so disappointed at Tyrese Halliburton injuring his Achilles. I mean, when I saw that injury and they played it over in slow motion, you could actually see his calf muscle retract.
Right.
It was shocking, actually. I felt so bad because I thought up until that moment in the game he had hit 3 3-pointers. I really thought he was on the trajectory to having a great game. And I really thought, because you have to have Halliburton play well. And I thought he was playing well up to that point. I actually thought we had a shot against that team. I was so disappointed.
Oh, it's an all-timer in Debbie Downer history. John, thanks for the telephone call. Clearly, we used the phrase struck a nerve earlier. I've been talking about Colts questions for phone calls, Miles Turner reaction for phone calls. Obviously, I should have opened the phone lines for Caddyshack phone calls because we have another one. And hey, man, it's July 14th. We're going to stick with what works. Nick wants to talk Caddyshack. Hello, Nick.
I hate to correct a fellow big fan of the programming you have on the Fan. However, LU is definitely mentioned by Judge Smales' wife when she requests that he comes into the shower with her to loofah her stretch marks.
I can actually picture the scene. It's the great thing.
So, yes, it is actually mentioned in Caddyshack.
Okay, so you're confirming the name, but it was actually mentioned by Mrs. Smales.
It was not just in the liner notes or the script.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it like go back and look at the scene. She has a great look on her face when Danny Noonan comes in.
Right.
And she's naked.
And he just tries to go.
Yeah.
And then again, we're all of us middle-aged dudes that are listening and interacting right now can literally see her eyes and his eyes and the smile, and then all of a sudden, bam! Here comes the golf club through the door. Absolutely.
You.
Yes, and on we go. Or the old lady going.
But I also want to say,
go ahead.
I do have a sports conversation to have as well. Like, one thing that's converging for me is that Miles Turner and Anthony Richardson are going through the similar process of spoiling a great possibility of being like famous and revered sports athletes in the city of Indianapolis. And like Miles's comments are, they're stupid. Why would you do that to people that you've been with for a decade,
right?
And you say that you cared about? And Richardson appears to not really enjoy playing football very much. Maybe he's just fragile.
I will jump in here, and Nick, thanks for the phone call and appreciate it. What you said about Maya, you heard me say yes. In other words, you don't trash the guys that were your teammates and you went to battle with in such recent past by saying, well, I want to be more competitive. That's garbage. Richardson's different, okay? Richardson, again, I don't know if he can stay healthy. I genuinely like Anthony Richardson, and I think the guys in the locker room genuinely like Anthony Richardson. It may not end up working out for him here. I hope it does. But it's not about him not loving football. That's the case. There seems to be a disconnect at times in terms of, do you have that leadership gene, sometimes an a-hole gene that goes along with it, that you have to be a quarterback. And I'm not sure that kid has it. That's part of it. And again, there are certain steps along the way from a teaching standpoint that I kind of wonder if he missed in terms of playing the position. But I can tell you from my time around him, I don't think it's a lack of love for football. And it's also, I think Anthony's happy here. It's just physically, can he keep that tremendous athletic, combination of things he has? Can he keep that all together and play at the highest level? That part I don't know. Nick, thank you for the phone call. Appreciate it. Whether you want to lead the conversation with Caddy Shack or not is up to you. But we can keep having a conversation for one more segment. Greg is in for JMV. Hi, I'm me. I went third person. Not sure why. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
with JMV.
Excuse me, Robo. Any special message for all the kids watching at home?
Stay out of trouble. 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Is that Dierks Bentley I hear? Not French death metal, but Dierks Bentley. Okay. Caller 4, 317-239-1070. You're going to get a pair of tickets to go see Dierks coming up on Friday night. It's still Deer Creek to me, damn it. Ruoff Home Mortgage Music Center is where he is performing. Other bands opening up for him. Call the number 4 right now at 317-239-1070. Before you start answering those phone calls, go ahead and hit up Patrick online, too, for me. He and I'll have a conversation while James is tracking down phone calls. Hello, Patrick. How are you?
I'm doing great, sir. How are you?
I'm good. How can I help you, sir?
So, I've been a diehard Pacers fan since Reggie days.
Yep.
And let me just tell you my favorite players for the past 20 years.
Okay.
Paul George.
Yep.
Victor Oladipo.
Yep.
And Miles Turner.
Patrick, I need to hook you up with a therapist at this point. I kind of saw where that trend was going. I'm sorry your favorite Pacers keep leaving you, Patrick.
Exactly. I have all of their jerseys, all 3 of them, and a Reggie jersey. So, of course, I still love the Reggie jersey, but I can't wear any of the others.
No, you got to burn those, yeah.
And I'm just here's my issue with Miles. I love the guy as a player. I loved him in Indiana. However, I would have respected him so much more if he just came out and said, "Yeah, it's for the money."
Right.
But coming out and this bull, I'm not going to cuss on here, but
thank you.
This bull of him saying, I wanted to go to a team that actually, is all about winning and all of that stuff. It makes no sense to me why you would say that. You are bashing your teammates that put their heart and soul on the line for you for the past 10 years, the organization for the past 10 years. Just come out and be truthful. It's for the money. And I'm fine with that. But why do you have to come out and make me second guess my favorite player? Even though you went away to the Bucks, if you came out and said it was the money, I would have said, you know what, I still love you, Miles.
Yep.
I get that.
Yep.
But you throwing the team under the bus is just it's backwards to me, I guess.
Patrick, that is exceedingly well said, and I don't think I can disagree with anything you just said. Anything else for the show today, my friend?
That's it. Caddyshack's amazing.
There you go. Of course it is. Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate that, too. Yes, Patrick's spot on. Thanks for the phone call, buddy. We do have our winner, by the way, the Dierks Bentley tickets as well. You want to call and talk to me? Great. 317-239-1070. Calling for tickets? Sorry, you got to try back tomorrow on that front. But yes, everything Patrick just said, spot on. Again, some of it is media coaching. Some of it is you put somebody in front of a live microphone long enough, they're going to say something bad. But literally, if you're like, hey, man, the Bucks gave me an offer the Pacers weren't going to match. I left. Great. Even if you want to say, hey, for as great as my time was in Indiana, I just wanted the challenge of something new. Okay, great. Understand. I get that. But Patrick nailed it. I want to go to a place that's more competitive. Again, you just napalm the bridge to the organization, to the city, to the guys you went to battle with and were 2 quarters away from winning an NBA championship, to join a team that you have beaten in the playoffs the last couple of years. And a team that, yes, is better because they have you, but still is far from a complete team. Like I said, it's Giannis, one of the best players in the league, hands down. You, whose skill set plays off of Giannis well, okay? And Kyle Kuzma, who we think is a good NBA player, but we're not actually really sure. Now, I had this pulled up and hadn't gotten to it yet. It appears the Bucks are going to try to bring in Cole Anthony. Cole, who had been playing with the Orlando Magic. Cole, who was traded to the Memphis Grizzlies as they acquired Desmond Bane. The Memphis Grizzlies are kind of retooling their roster, basically knowing they've got to pay Ja Morant top dollar and Jaren Jackson, top dollar, and don't want to pay anybody else top dollar and trying to, again, put the pieces together. Looks like Cole Anthony could be going to Milwaukee to give them, again, another score. But so let me do this as I talk while typing to kind of give you an idea as to the group that Miles is joining in Milwaukee that he thinks will be more competitive than the Indiana Pacers. Giannis, Miles, Kyle Kuzma, Bobby Portis, Kevin Porter, Ryan Rollins, Gary Trent Jr., he of not being able to catch a pass, Gary Harris, I think we know him, Taurean Prince, again, Cole Anthony, Jericho Sims, A.J. Green, Andre Jackson, Tyler Smith. We think that's better than the Indiana Pacers? So maybe we shouldn't be criticizing Miles for his decision-making. Maybe we should be criticizing Miles for his ability to judge talent. Maybe we have learned Miles is not going to be a future NBA general manager. Maybe that is what we have really learned on the show today. I hope you learned something on the show today. I hope you laughed. If you cried, that's probably on you. I don't think saying that emotional. Hope you had a good time. Hope you want to come back tomorrow because the same substitute teacher will be here tomorrow on the show. We will talk to a young man that was drafted in the 6th round of the MLB draft and a guy that will achieve, I'm sure, a boyhood dream when the Brickyard 400 is here 13 days from now. We'll try to do it better tomorrow on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.